All right, let's talk about the absolute lifeblood of DeFi, yield. It's what drives everything. But what if I told you that the way we handle yield is, well, it's kind of broken? There's a new token standard that's trying to fix all that, to bring some order to the chaos. And today, we're going to break down exactly how it works and take a deep dive into the protocol that's leading the charge, Pendle.
So here's the game plan. First, we'll look at the problem, why yield is so fragmented. Then, we'll get into the solution, EIP 5115. After that, we'll see how Pendle is actually using this thing in the real world. And finally, we'll talk about strategies, risks, and what all this means for you.
Okay, first things first, to really get why this new standard is such a big deal, you have to understand the massive headache it's trying to solve.
You know, yield in DeFi comes in a million different flavors, right? You've got staking rewards, lending interest, liquidity provider fees. The list goes on. And here's the problem. Every single one of these is built differently. They have their own code, their own rules. So if you're a developer trying to build a new protocol on top of these, it's an absolute nightmare. You can't just plug them in. You have to build a custom adapter for every single one. It's slow and super inefficient.
And that fragmentation, that's the real villain of the story here. As Signum Capital put it, this is what makes building so difficult. It slows everything down, sure, but it does something worse. It stops DeFi from being truly permissionless. The whole point of DeFi is that anyone can build on anything, right? But if you have to go and write custom code for every asset, well, it's not really plug and play. It's more like beg for an integration. So, how do you fix a problem that's this messy? Well, you do it with a really simple, really elegant idea. And that solution is called EIP 1515. Now, don't let the name scare you. At its core, it's just a blueprint. It's basically a proposal that says, hey everyone, what if we all agree to package our yield tokens in the exact same way? By creating one universal format, it makes all these different yield-bearing assets speak the same language. Suddenly, they're all instantly compatible. They can talk to each other, they can be stacked together, it just works. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like this. EIP 1515 is the USB port for DeFi Yield. Seriously, remember before USB? You had a different clunky cable for your printer, your mouse, your camera. It was a disaster. Then USB came along with one plug to rule them all. That's exactly what this standard wants to do for Yield. One plug, endless possibilities. And this isn't just for Pendle, it's a potential game changer for the entire ecosystem. Okay, so that's the big idea, the theory behind it all. But what does it look like in practice? How does this actually work in the wild? Well, for that, we've got to look at Pendle, because they're the ones who have really run with this idea and put it to work. And the way Pendle uses it is actually pretty genius in its simplicity. So, step one, you take a yield-bearing asset, let's say some staked ETH, and you deposit it into Pendle. Step two, Pendle takes that asset and splits it right down the middle, minting two brand new tokens. You get a principal token, or PT, and a yield token, or YT. Now, getting the difference between these two is absolutely key. Think of the principal token, the PT, like a promise. It's a token that says, at the end of this period, you can trade me back in for your original 1 ETH. It's your principal, locked in. The yield token, the YT, that's the exciting part. That token represents all the future staking rewards your ETH is going to earn until that maturity date. It's pure, tradable yield. And that split, that's the magic trick. This unbundling of principal and yield is what changes everything, because Pendle has created something that didn't really exist before, a market just for trading future yield. You can now buy or sell the right to future earnings completely separately from the underlying asset. And this, my friends, unlocks a whole universe of new strategies. Which, of course, brings us to the most important part. What does this actually mean for you as an investor? How can you use this? Let's get into the strategies this opens up, and maybe even more importantly, the risks that come along with it. So you've got a few main plays here. First, there's the fixed income route. You can buy those principal tokens at a discount. Buy a token that'll be worth 1 ETH at maturity for, say, 0.95 ETH today. You just hold it, and boom, you've locked in a fixed return. Second, you can go full degen and speculate on yield. If you think staking rewards are about to pump, you can buy up the yield tokens and get leveraged exposure to that upside. And third, of course, you can be a liquidity provider. You can add liquidity to the PT or YT pools and just sit back and collect trading fees. But here's something you really need to keep in mind. It's not always about chasing the highest APY. Just look at this data for Athena's synthetic dollar. The APY dropped off a cliff, but look at the holder count. It barely budged. What does that tell you? It tells you that people stick around for things they trust and find reliable. High yield is great for getting attention, but trust is what keeps users here. And for a protocol like Pendle, that's a lesson they can't afford to forget.
All right, now let's talk about the risks, because nothing in DeFi is a free lunch. Audits, like this one from Chain Security, are super important to read. They pointed out a few big things. You've got your classic smart contract risk. A bug in the code is always a possibility. Then there's Oracle manipulation risk. The system needs to know the price of things, and if that data feed gets corrupted, things can go sideways fast. They also mentioned that the reward system could be gamed, but the biggest one, the one that's baked into the very design, is a huge economic assumption. And here's the quote that should make you sit up and pay attention. The system is basically built on the assumption that the exchange rate of the asset you put in only ever goes up. Now, what does that mean in plain English? It means the whole model works great as long as your staked ETH, for example, is always worth at least 1 ETH. If something crazy happened and it started being worth less, that core assumption breaks. And if that happens, the principal token could depeg and people could lose money. It's a critical thing to understand.
So, what's the big takeaway here? EIP 5115 is creating a brand new, incredibly powerful money Lego for DeFi, and protocols like Pendle are showing us just what you can build with it. But with that power comes a whole lot of new complexity. So if you're going to jump in, you absolutely have to do your homework and understand exactly what you're getting into.
And all of this leaves us with a huge question. Is this the future? Is standardizing yield the moment DeFi starts to grow up, creating mature, stable markets like we see in traditional finance? Or are we just inventing newer, faster, and more complicated ways to lose all our money? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and it's going to be fascinating to watch it play out.